Hey everyone! So, if you're gearing up for the CAPM exam, you already know that requirements gathering is a huge topic. It's probably one of the most important skills for any project manager. But honestly, it's also where a lot of projects can start to go sideways and where exam questions can get really tricky. Today, we're going to preview a framework for getting it right.
I mean, we've all been there, haven't we? A project kicks off, everyone's excited, but then you realize the requirements are kind of vague or worse, totally misunderstood. And that just leads to scope creep, delays, and some seriously unhappy stakeholders. Nailing this part is, without a doubt, the foundation for everything else. So, in this quick explainer, we're going to walk through a really powerful way to think about this whole challenge. Now, this is not about memorizing a bunch of definitions. It's about building a mental model that you can actually use on those tricky exam questions and, even better, on your real-life projects.
You know, what's really great about this slide is that it perfectly captures the exact problems we see CAPM candidates running into all the time. You might know the definitions inside and out, but the exam, well, it tests your ability to apply them. Which tools should you use in this situation? How do you track a change from start to finish? That's where it gets tough.
All right, so first up in our framework, choosing the right tools. This whole part is about taking those fuzzy, abstract ideas from your stakeholders and turning them into something tangible, something the project team can actually look at and build.
So the first step is really just to make those ideas visible. Think about it. A wireframe gives you the basic skeleton of what you're building. A prototype? Well, that lets stakeholders actually click around and interact with the idea. And a user story, that tells the all-important why behind a feature, right from the user's perspective. Each of these tools just gets you one step closer to a shared, concrete vision.
Okay, now here is a classic exam-style question. Let's say you need structured, detailed feedback from a whole bunch of different stakeholders. Which tool is your best bet? The keywords to listen for there are structured and multiple. See, picking the right tool from the get-go can save you from a world of chaos down the line.
But look, having the right tools is only half the battle. How do you actually get the information out of people's heads to put into those tools? That is all about selecting the right approach.
The CAPM curriculum points to a few key methods, right? You can do one-on-one interviews to get really deep insights. You can run collaborative workshops to build consensus in a group. You could use surveys to get really broad feedback from a lot of people quickly. Or you could even just use observation to see how people actually work, not just how they say they work. The project's context is what tells you which approach is best.
And oh man, here's a scenario every single project manager has dealt with. Your stakeholder says, I can't really describe it, but I'll know it when I see it. How do you handle that? What approach helps you dig out those unstated needs? This right here is the kind of critical thinking the CAPM is testing.
Okay, so you've gathered your requirements. You use the right tools, the right approaches. Fantastic. But guess what? The job is not done. Now, how do you make sure nothing gets lost or forgotten along the way? The final piece of this puzzle is tracking.
And this is where two really critical artifacts come into play, the RTM and the product backlog. I want you to think of the RTM as your project's audit trail. It connects every single requirement back to where it came from. The product backlog, on the other hand, that's the team's living, breathing, prioritized to-do list. One ensures traceability, the other drives action.
And this is a perfect, simple example of an RTM. You can see how each requirement has its own unique ID, a clear description, its current status, and most importantly, it links out to other project documents. This gives you total traceability. If someone asks why task_002 exists, you can trace it right back to requirement R2. No guesswork involved.
So let's wrap this section up with one final, super common scenario. A change request comes in at the last minute. Which artifact is your safety net? Which one makes sure that this new request is properly linked back to an original business need, preventing that dreaded scope creep? Knowing this is absolutely key.
So, let's tie this all together. You can probably see there's a clear logic here, right? You choose a tool, you apply an approach, and then you track the result. The CAPM exam is built on this exact logic. It's constantly testing your ability to connect these dots in real-world scenarios. Honestly, this principle right here is everything. The exam is constantly checking if you understand that a systematic, organized approach to requirements is the absolute bedrock of a successful project. If you get this right, you are well on your way. Ultimately, acing the exam isn't about memorizing the definition of an RTM. It's about training your brain to read a scenario, spot the key words, and instantly recognize the pattern that points you straight to the right solution. That is the skill you need to build.
So the goal is never, ever to just memorize a long list of tools and techniques.
Instead, it's about learning to think like a project manager. It's about applying these concepts systematically so you can walk into that exam room and into your next project meeting with total confidence, ready to handle any requirement scenario they throw at you. And here's the bottom line. In those tricky scenario questions, your ability to quickly identify the correct approach or the correct artifact is often the one thing that unlocks the right answer. It's a skill, and we help you build it. This was just a small glimpse into our approach. The complete, in-depth framework for mastering requirements gathering and every other CAPM topic is waiting for you inside the Exam Coaches platform. Thanks so much for watching.